Welcome to the Claims Underground podcast with your hosts, Corey Locke and Troy Willis, where we help policyholders just like you understand your policy and how to navigate through an insurance claim. We advocate for homeowners as well as businesses when insurance companies won't pay. So if you're tired of getting the runaround and ready to find out what's really going on, then let's get down to business and learn from the insurance claims experts, Corey Locke and Troy Willis.
Welcome back to Claims Underground. We have a great topic here today. My name is Troy Willis. My co-host here is Corey Locke. I'm a licensed public adjuster. I am also an expert witness, ex-retired builder, building consultant. I do large loss estimates. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. I have multiple certifications. It's not as important to go after everything, but got a little bit of qualifications that allows me to speak today. My co-host Corey has a resume that's impeccable as well, and it allows him to be a voice as well. So let's hear what he got going on. Let's get it, Corey. What you got?
Hey all, I'm Corey Locke. I'm a public adjuster. I've had 35 years in the adjusting business. I've been an independent adjuster, large loss adjuster, a separately licensed independent adjuster, and now public insurance adjuster. I've been licensed for more than 20 years with a California license, both as the independent and public adjuster. Got some other certifications, qualifications, expert for mitigation and fire and a couple and moisture and content and a few other things. But tonight we're going to be talking about the topic is California has now changed the requirement for adjusters, agents, analysts, and a license number on emails and actually letters too. So we've had some interesting pieces of literature that have come our way. The Department of Insurance sends out when there are changes, and usually the changes for the state legislature happen at the end of the year. They trigger to be applicable for the first part of the year. Now, as we as public adjusters have license, we're licensed by the state Department of Insurance. We have to have a bond. We have to have a qualification that we've had so many years of experience. We have to be tested. We have to have our backgrounds checked. If we have any sort of administrative actions against us, if we owe child support, if we had drunk driving, we will never have a license. And especially if we don't fess up to that at the very beginning, we will never have a license ever, 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 ever. And if at the time we have a license, every 2 years they're asking us, do you have any drunk driving offenses? Do you have any child support issues? Do you have any administrative actions for anything on any level? And if we don't tell them and they find out later, we don't have a license. So there's a great deal of regulatory obligation that goes with being a public insurance adjuster. Same said, there's a great deal of obligations that go with being an independent insurance adjuster. In state of California, not every adjuster has to be individually licensed. We're starting to see that there are individual licenses required in New York, in Texas, and now in Florida. If you're sitting at a desk, you have to have a license. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to have that license as an adjuster in the state of Florida. Whether you walk the beat and look at the stuff or sit at the desk and look at something, if you are in the state of Florida, you have to have a license. And what we've been seeing is there have been obligations for the signature line that you're seeing come from those adjusters in Florida to be sent out. And that's been on there. Now, the state legislature in California had a change. And if I'm quoting this correctly, there's been a change to the insurance code section 1725.5 to modernize it. And so
Right.
starting on January 1st of 2023, California Insurance Code 1725.5 subsection C now requires all resident and non-resident insurance producers, independent adjusters, public insurance adjusters, and analysts to include their license number on their emails and letters. This is an obligation. It obligates them to have it in a certain size and at a certain location and on each and every document they're going to send and each and every email. So why is this important? Troy, why is this important? I mean, we tell people regulatory things all the time. Why is this particular thing important?
It's important to know who's licensed because for the fact that in certain states that being regulated by the states, you require, especially with a fiduciary responsibility, to have certain ethics in the way you handle these claims. As you mentioned, and even contracts in California require 10-point fonts when printing contracts. And so this new law, well, it's actually an amended law from a Senate Bill 1242, Chapter 424, if I'm not mistaken, was added to this actual bill that added to this situation regarding licenses under being put on emails and letters. It requires the who's ever sending you this message, they have to have a 10-point font for the street address, 11-point font for email address, uh, 12-point font for your phone number and your license number. It has to be in a 12-point font. And either it has to be adjacent to your name or it has to be listed below your name and title, is the way that they have it, where you have to display it now. This was the Senate bill change. I think it's a C behind it that gave that addendum, that add-on to it. It was added to that 1725.5 insurance code, that's requiring people to have their license on there. I think is I think is more than important, because we do deal with a lot of these people as seat fillers, and we're responsible when things happen against our license, so they should be held accountable when it happened against theirs. Just
Okay.
recently, when there was a whistleblower in Florida, one of the adjusters of the three, I believe it was, or four, made a comment and said that they had somebody else revising his estimates, removing evidence he had provided that supported the claim, and they left his license number on the estimate. So if the department was to come after anybody, they're coming after the license holder,
Right.
not the person who allegedly might have touched it behind it. Coming back to the license holder, and so to me, I think is even more critical. Is something that we would pay more attention to with some of these adjusters, because we do hold them under that statute I was mentioning, that they can be sued for misleading as well. I don't think you can sue a seat filler without a license, acting as an adjuster as well. I mean, under somebody else's license. I mean, we understand this Public Adjusting Act out here, that if you act as a public adjuster and you're not a licensed public adjuster, it's a $10,000. It's up to a $10,000 fine. If you do it willfully, it's up to $25,000. The only
Hmm.
two people that can advocate in this state on your behalf of an insurance claim is is a licensed public adjuster as well as an attorney. That's it, to my understanding and knowledge. There's nobody else that can do it. Your contractor can't advocate for you. You know, your I have seen this. I will stand corrected when I say some of that. I have seen that insured, and it's not an assignment of benefits, can literally write a letter that gives a person permission to advocate on their behalf.
That's possible, and usually that's with a family member or a
I was
trusted
about to get
confidant.
there. That's where it happened at. It was my aunt, and my aunt had a break in, and we called the insurance company up together on the phone, a three way, and she told them that her nephew would be help handling this claim because she wasn't, aware of what to do, how to do it, and she was ill, and so we addressed it that way. Funniest claim ever too. They just said, we're not coming out. It was the unrealest claim I've never seen a claim where they tell you I'm not coming out. Just send us the damages. I'm still oblivious to this today. They did that, but again, those are the times that may trigger. But normally, it's only by a licensed public adjuster and an attorney. Um, I think this should have been implemented a lot sooner than this. I know that this new release came down to start for January 1, 2023. So it almost sounds like it introduces a new thing. I'm still not sure. I don't have a definitive answer on what's the penalty if you are in, violation of it. I mean, will they suspend your license, revoke it? What would they do? Temporary suspension? Who knows? Who can call it? But I definitely see it as a slight benefit, because it identifies a party that's responsible now
Hmm.
versus somebody who's not. We get many estimates that come in, and they can even be from contractors. And the insurance company just use the contractor's estimate. They ain't even on it. It's just the contractor name. He the one
Yeah.
wrote it. It's the insurance company name. No adjusters, license, nothing. And if we, as the public adjuster, has to be licensed to advocate for the people, why shouldn't every insurance adjuster be licensed to advocate for the carrier?
Yeah, I had that. I had that direct conversation with a staffer
Okay.
for the Senator Bill Dodd. State Senator Bill Dodd is the chairman of the insurance committee, state of California. They're the people that make the changes to the insurance code. And it was mentioned to me that it just couldn't get through the matrix that's within the legislature. There's a lot of oversight. There's a lot of lobbyists for the insurance companies, and that would never get past them to license all adjusters. Now, why is that permitted, or why is that capable of being done in Florida, in
Other states.
Texas, and New York? What's special about Florida, Texas, and New York that every adjuster is licensed? Are we less than Florida, Texas, and New York?
I agree with you. That it doesn't justify what they say they can't do. I mean, we not want to say it out loud, but we know why a lot of times there's no actions taken against the carriers, because if they packed up and left the state, you ain't getting revenues, and that's going to cause an issue itself. And that's the downpour, and it shouldn't offset what is the protection of the consumers, but we realize it really do. It does play a part in this. I mean, if all the carriers packed up, what would you regulate, and where would those jobs be down there? But the question always get to be, how does it really help the people? These departments is put together to regulate jurisdiction over what certain occupations do to protect people, and that's insurance is one of them. And this is the Department of Insurance for California. Um, you know, I mean, I get it. We all busy. Everybody got a lot to do on their job, a lot on their plate. I get they undermanned some, and money, staffing, and all that. But let's be real. I mean, we talking like we all together in our living room today talking about this. Every complaint that's been filed with the Department of Estate, the California Department of Insurance, I'm sorry, they may tell you they're gonna get involved with it and oversee what's going on and review to see if the violation's going. But name one that you've seen that ever came back and said we violate them.
I have maintained this position. I actually said this to a manager today when they started fronting on me and started saying, well, we don't have to give you this. And, what you're saying is not true. We don't have to do that. There's a lot of problems that we see with the Department of Insurance. They're understaffed. They're,
Mhm.
underfunded. They have a mandate that's very wide. However, that's that however word. The one thing that you have to have in this state to operate is a license. Every
Absolutely.
every carrier has to have a license. The easiest thing that the Department of Insurance could do through the commissioner, which is an elected position. It's not an appointed position, it's an elected position. They have a certain amount of years to do this. And we've seen that they have already been advised, or the insurance commissioner has the power to go to any sort of superior court and act on the behalf of the of the policyholders, the state of California, and put a stop to activities. They can absolutely immediately walk in and do this. There's not that It's not like they don't have lawyers on the Department of Insurance staff, but the one thing that they also can do is immediately pause your license to sell. If you pause an insurance company's license to sell, you are choking off the pyramid game. You are
Hmm.
choking off
Hmm.
money that they put into paying for their overhead, their investments. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're going to wake their ass straight up fast. You tell
Absolutely.
them you can't sell insurance for the next 120 days till we evaluate, and we come back for an administrative hearing. Oh, they would show up fast for that administrative hearing. They would try to get that quashed. They would immediately start, paying attention. Oh, we'll do exactly what you say. Oh, we'll do better. We promise. We promise. I saw this in real time happen when I was working for a certain carrier. This did happen. They put them on pause and they woke them the hell up. It is possible, but you got to be willing. You got to be a willing person to do your job as you've been elected to do so in the state of California. If you
It,
just
it, take,
want,
it takes more than us. You're right. It takes the right will and the people who can take to that next step. It takes them.
uh
But you would think it would take people like ourselves to point out these violators And the files are clear. They request, so people would know, they request our entire file. They
Mhm.
request the insurance company entire file. And as much corruption and fraud as we see within the file, why is nothing ever done to
Right.
that effect? I mean, it's clear and blatantly clear. I give you the best one: 2071 claim related doc files. That wasn't just written on a piece of paper.
No.
That's law here. And how many? And I won't say the insurance company, but I had one tell me, I ain't giving you nothing.
Right.
I don't care about that law. I ain't give you nothing. Really? And put it in writing. Not to mention twice. Put it in writing.
Get a subpoena.
That's what they told me. Get a
That's what they
subpoena.
told us. And when we
And
complained on that same carrier, we won't say who, and it was multiple complaints in the same year, and
wow.
within probably 3 or 4 months, we actually were contacted by the Department of Insurance. A supervisor level contacted us and said, "Please don't file any more complaints against X. We know we have a problem." No. If I find another one, two, 10, I'm going to file the complaint because
Keep the
that's what.
records going.
Why would I, as a licensed professional, not call them out for bad behavior?
That's
If you
right.
know, why aren't you doing something about it? Why aren't you using your regulatory actions? Guys, if you didn't understand, the Department of Insurance can wheel up at will and
That's right.
send in the stormtroopers into any carrier
That's
and
right.
say, we're going to camp out here for the next 6 months and review your files. We'll wheel up, send you in, review files. If we find violations, we are going to be fining your ass big time. And when they fine you, they basically take a smattering of claims. They determine that under percentages that we looked at, 10 files, let's just say that's it. Under 10 files, you violated the following insurance acts so many different times. We just make the assumption that you've done that for every claim that you've ever done in the entire year. So they just simply take all the claims that you did an entire year and multiply it by a factor of what, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever it is, times every single claim, and that becomes your fine. That becomes your fine. Now, the one thing I will say that is that the Department of Insurance is very, very, very slow in coming out with their market conducts. It might be 2 years after the market conducts that they finally, do this, that they finally admit that, oh yeah, we've been negotiating and they paid a little fee. I think that's a mistake. I think that, being slow and not assessing this in real time, you could do this in real time. Troy, you and I both know that the Department of Insurance in the three areas of the state of California, the bottom three floors are the Department of Insurance. The next 10 or 20 floors are every single insurance company that are licensed. That's just the risk. They can walk into the elevator, go up 2 floors, and walk in to any insurance company office. That means they have immediate access to every single file that's available in the insurance company. All they would have to do is put the market conduct unit in every single one of the buildings in California, which is Sacramento, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. You just make an investigative unit that is part of your offices there, and you can do it in real time and start finding them in real time. That is not a problem. But
Well,
what's the willingness? What's the
the,
willingness for that?
the funny side of that is if it's a public adjuster, they'll show up at his doorstep or his office and they request his claim files right on the spot.
Right
You
on the
have to
spot.
give it to them. You have a choice. And
Right.
so why not, like you say, show up there and say, hey, let's look at this. Or why not really address it instead of tell people we're willing to address it? What gets me is that you tell some people, hey, this is beyond our jurisdiction. We're not here for that. But you are, and unless you know how to file a complaint properly, which I think is unfair to the consumer, that's a problem. I had, and I've seen it. I mean, I recall watching a homeowner file a claim before, and he just explained what was going on, and it was very personal. The letter was very personal. It wasn't business for him. It was personal, how he felt, how they was treating him, the things that was said to him, how they have not paid things, blah 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 blah. They say, hey, this is not our jurisdiction. We don't have anything to do with your money wise or the cut. We only imply the laws and blah blah blah. And I thought, how did you miss everything that he told you? So, and I did this. So when he hired me on, I want to revise the actual complaint versus just leaving it alone saying it's not doable. And myself, I know that when I file a complaint, I'm never personal. I never get into the personal dramatics of the case. I get into the code violation and what it is. If you have it, if it's a 2071, they've been in violation for 71 days, for example. 2695, they have 40 days to accept or reject. It's been 117 days. That, and I list the code. And I've never had one rejected by the doing that process.
Right.
But the problem I get is I get the letter that, hey, we're investigating it. And of course, we got your files, but do you really investigate it? Because, and I say this for this reason, speaking about that claim you mentioned that they violated so many times the same company, as you know, that adjuster, the truth came out by slipping them giving me an email that they were supposed to give me, that he made clear twice on 2 occasions that do not give the public adjuster this information. And he has his own personal files, despite everything. So he has his own set of files doing his own role thing. And yet, again, and knowing that as a department that this guy has got his own set of files separately, which is not something he should have. And then two, he's hiding claim files and telling them, don't give them this. Only they can have this. It's clear. So why wouldn't the department come in when they got copies of this going, wait a minute, this is a big violation. It's one thing you didn't produce the files, but you're caught telling people in emails not to do it. Where's the balance in that with the department?
Well,
what makes the customer feel comfortable to say, I'm gonna file this complaint or file a complaint on my behalf when nothing's really going to make a difference in my complaint other than the fact they looked at. For you and I, we know that some carriers will wake them up.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they go, "Oh, well, we need to look at this. We don't want this to occur again. We apologize." There are carriers that happens to, and
I,
sometimes there are some others that are very jaded. What did you expect the Department of Insurance to do? I expected them to take the complaint, which they do, and they log it as one other complaint. Now, when they do the market conduct, they start with the complaints because that's the roadmap. The more we complain and show them the roadmap of behavior that just doesn't change, that's how they start the market conduct. So it's not a failed effort. The Department of Insurance will never pay, it will never tell an insurance company what to pay, but
that's
they'll tell
right.
them how they misbehaved. That's the
That's
whole
right.
purpose. And the Department of Insurance has a role. They can play an active role, they can play a much more efficient role, but they have to want to play that role. Now, why are we saying all this and why do we talk about analyst numbers and public adjusting numbers and independent adjusting numbers? We are seeing what you said, Troy. We're seeing tons and tons and tons of seat fillers. That means a lot of companies have gone to the business model of that we're not going to hire a W 2 employee and train them and have them part of our kumbaya family for 10 and 20, 30 years and you retire. That doesn't exist anymore. The
That's right.
idea of having long term longevity of adjusters with institutional awareness of intelligence and policy and adjustment practices, they don't want that. They have gone to the business practice of hiring 1099 seat fillers. And when I say a seat filler, they are someone that, it used to be, Troy, when we used to talk about this, that it used to be you couldn't be an adjuster unless you had a college degree.
Bachelors. You had to have at
Absolute
least a bachelor's. Yeah.
minimum,
Yeah.
minimum for decades. That's the way it was. You had to have you had a bachelor's degree. That's
I'm hearing about people with high school diplomas, man.
that's and maybe some not even that. Some GEDs and maybe not even that. Just a warm body. They're just saying, okay, we're gonna if you go and you take this little quiz for estimatics and learn how to do square foot, running foot, square of a roof, you're good. And then we're going to send you through a little song and dance to get certified to go work for any you name a carrier and they're doing it, that they all go work for these independent firms. You name an independent firm, they're doing it. And what they do is they place that body in that seat, and then they pay them a lot less than
Oh yeah.
they would pay that
Oh
body a
yeah.
lot less than someone that would be there for longevity and have the institutional awareness and full training. I mean, when I came on as an adjuster for a company, I went through 2 weeks of training. I went through policy. I went through HR. I went through all the requirements. I read the adjustment book because every single company has a manual of
Yeah.
adjustment. The minimal standards of proper adjustment and investigation. They all had it. Is that now? No. We have all seat fillers and posers and fronters now that are all sitting in those seats. Now, why is this important to our subject? Because now, now, this new law requires that they be unmasked. You can't just say, yeah,
And when you look at that unmasked and look at what those requirements are for everybody, because you just gave a great comparison to what they're qualified and what they need to do. Now, public adjusters have to have at least 2,000 claim hours or have to be an apprentice under another licensed adjuster for a year.
right.
And you have to have some experience at this. You can't just jump in this and just do it. But none of them requirements is for an adjuster. You could be just Joe Blow off the street and you get a job, and now he puts you in the seat, and they tell you, hey, this is how you do it, and you just figure out the rest as you go, and just follow these other estimates, or go shadow this guy for a couple of days, and you should know all about this. And like you say, the fact that they never read the policies, it make you wonder, why is it that a public adjuster who represents the public has to have a license and go through 24 hours of CE training every 2 years, 2,000 hours to become one, or 12 months of apprentice, bonds to be able to get your license as well. And the other side of this is a adjuster for the insurance company who didn't get licensed, just works underneath somebody who didn't have to do absolutely anything. And he's the same person that's working against the public, though, and not for the public, but with the public, even though he's against them. Where's the line draw? What's the difference between why we require licensing and insurance adjusters don't?
It's the same question of that. Why do carrier adjusters, why are they not required to be individually licensed? Why don't they have to have a background check? Why don't they have to go through continuing education? Why don't they have to affirm every 2 years that they don't have actions against them? Why is that?
Agreed.
Why are we special? Why are we special that we have to do this dance to hold our ethics up, and that they have no ethic component because they're not individually licensed? The
Uh,
piece that we're starting to see now is that you're going to look at that signature line. It's going to say, this is Joe Blow, and they won't have a license. But the person below them is going to say that they are the person that works for their company. And it may say, we're an outside resource, and they'll list the company. Below that, the next line is to say the qualified manager for this outside resource is X, and that's their license number. And below that, it's going to say the outside company, and there's 4 or 5 of them, and it'll say who they are. And it won't be State Farm; it'll be just an outside resource, and it'll list their license number. Why is that important? That's going to say that to you that that person is supposed to be supervised by that qualified manager that holds the license. But what we just heard this week, and I just heard it directly, that I called out this issue, and it was for one of the top 10 carriers in California. You can look it up, take your pick. And they said that I reached out to them because I was having some problems with the adjuster who was sitting in the file telling me, no, I don't have to, and no, I'm not going to, and no, we don't need to, and I'm not going to. So, and I don't, and that doesn't apply. Okay, I understand that. And again, this is a 2071 requirement. This is a 2051.5 requirement. This is a 40-day accept or reject requirement. And they just basically blow that off. And the person is saying, I don't have to do any of that. So I reached out to his qualified manager. The qualified manager is one that should be in direct contact and in direct control with that employee of this outside entity. They are not direct employees of that insurance company. They're just a resource. They're a body sitting at a desk, wherever that desk is. So what I was told when the qualified manager contacted me back is, well, I don't have operational control over those people day to day, and I don't have any access to the file. That's all with working with, that insurance company. That's the manager for that unit. I go, well, that's not qualification that the state of California says. You, as a qualified manager, have to be in control of what that adjuster does. And he says, no, we don't.
Wow. Really?
No, we don't.
That's because he don't know no better, and yet he ain't learned it either. He filling the seat. Like my manager just it told me, hey, I don't know them codes either, Troy. I gotta look them up and get back to you. You're a manager and you don't know insurance codes? I mean, it's that kind of a lot. Why are you in the business of insurance and you really don't know your job and what is being regulated for them to know that job? That comes to be key. I mean, you take the adjuster's test, a public adjuster's test, and it covers quite a bit of codes for the state that you got to
Oh, no
know.
doubt. No
So,
doubt.
if we're required to know these codes and we're required to be licensed, I can understand why Florida, New York, and a lot of other ones are saying, no, you need to be as well. These are some of the biggest states in the country. And they have some of the biggest losses around the country, just like Texas and Louisiana and so forth. Louisiana just passed a law allowing public adjusters to advocate for them.
Right.
How unfair is that? Let alone need a license number on it. Before, a public adjuster could only investigate and advise in Louisiana. That's the funniest thing to me. Now they've changed the law that they can actually advocate for you. The insurance companies were lobbying the fact of stating that, hey, if you guys let the public adjusters come in Louisiana and advocate, they're going to start sending out these outrageous estimates and drawing up, making insurance rates go up for these frivolous estimates, making us pay out all this money. Now, I've been in this industry 3 decades, and I've never seen an insurance company pay something they didn't owe. They
No, they
never paid
don't.
no more than that. It's
No.
never been an extra just because we like you, we love you, we did you wrong. Even when we do you wrong, you're not gonna get paid what you're entitled. You'll never get what you're fully entitled. Um, to me at this point. I mean, you can even make my numbers right by what we put in writing on damages. But what about all the emotional stress you put through people and the things you can't change? There's holidays that's been destroyed or special events that's going on in life. I got a customer now, as I spoke in the last segment, that they had the best moment of their life having a child. You had to bring them home to this house in this condition. You can't change that. No department can change that. You and I can't change that. All we can do is make people somewhat whole to a reasonable settlement. And despite all of it, I mean, we get people that's so thankful for the type of numbers we bring in. But come on, deep down inside, do it really change the emotional feelings they went through? It's just a
No.
satisfying moment just to be able to move forward. You're not giving. It ain't like you hit the lottery and they just gave you something. You giving what you're entitled so you can move forward. And it takes what process to get you there when in fact you paid for this policy. You paid them to protect your risk. Take the risk on your property, protect this property in case anything happened. And here's my obligation every month to do that. And they took it. They take it all the time. And then when you have, and you're in good hands and you're the best neighbor, just
Or
know
you're on
you
my
got me.
side, or you're a
And
member.
that's the other killer. You know what I mean? That's one of the big sellers. You're not a customer, you're a member until you have a claim. And then
Right.
you're an enemy. And
Right.
that's usually with most carriers. I can't say everybody's bad. I wouldn't do that. But
No,
that's pretty much the case for most. And there's some good ones out there. Just like
there
with the
are.
department,
And I've
there's
had
a
those
lot of
conversations.
things I'd appreciate about them. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I
There's a
do.
few things that need changing and revisions and need help. And, thank goodness that the Department of Insurance is here for many other reasons that actually keep some of these insurance companies in check. Because as we stated earlier, sometimes it does move the buck. It'll get them to dance. I had an adjuster to call me back after I filed a serious complaint against her. She's a senior examiner, so that didn't go well. And I've never had an adjuster ask me this. And she asked me, she says, when I take care of this and resolve this, Mr. Willis, will you rescind your complaint? Yes, ma'am, I would.
Yeah.
And and it was questionable over here. My daughter, who's over here as a public adjuster, she's sitting here as well. She's like, why? Why you let her off the hook? Because, making enemies in this business is not attractive for your customers, not a
No.
benefit.
No.
But to have an understanding and to not keep things hostile and de-escalated in a way that it could benefit many customers behind this. Now I should be able to have a conversation with this lady without
Right.
having a fight. Now I
Right.
should come to an understanding without having to battle over something. Now she paid the entire claim on what I asked for penny, dollar for dollar. And the mathematics of this is, and I sent her an email, I will keep my word and I will rescind the complaint. But I'm waiting on payment. Unfortunately, we have to do this. We can never trust what they say. We already know that. We've had a carrier tell us, "Hey, we sent a couple 100,000 to you back in July." Still not
Yeah.
here, and yet we ain't
Yeah.
gonna justify we sent it, who we sent it to. If it's cleared, if it ain't, we just gonna keep saying we did it. So I'm not gonna let her off the hook just yet. But I appreciate the fact that when she came back at this, she came back as a professional to basically say, "Hey, it didn't get done. I got it. It got messed up. Let's make it right now." And
I
so she didn't delay it, ask for more inspections, anything. And I appreciated that. So I wanted to meet her halfway, as well with that. So I
right.
think that when it comes to these people that's adjusters and agents and so forth, we didn't get into the agents, why it's important for them. The new release talks about life insurance agents, health insurance, all type of agents, period, that are selling insurance need to list their license number. Outside of adjusters, public adjusters, desk adjusters, independent adjusters, we all have to list our license evolving around insurance. And
Yeah,
so,
there is that all day long that we don't want to go to war. That's the last thing we want to do. All we want to do is present the insurance case. But I think there was one thing I wanted to clarify with that. There is a perception that the public adjuster, all they do is exaggerate. All they
I
do
know.
is write big estimates. All they do is protract this process. Well, there is some validity to that. There are some public adjusters out here that just write extraordinary estimates with no verification. I want to take out this. I want to do this. This is assumed to be damaged. That's not how we interpret our jobs. Our jobs are to interpret what is here and put that into a format that is verified. That's why we do Matterport. That's why we take photos. That's why we do testing. That's why
Mhm,
we do more than any other ones do testing.
mhm.
And so when we tell you this is what's here and we show you the evidence of that, and then you pay a percentage of what we're saying, we've seen this, you've seen this, I've seen this. If the adjustment that they came off with was $16,000 for the independent adjuster, and then they came back at it and they said no, the adjustment's 20, and then they come back at it and they said no, the adjustment is 30, and then the carrier adjuster
Over and
gets it,
over.
and the carrier adjuster gets it, and the carrier adjuster readjusts it because he's a very intelligent adjuster, has been trained, understands. He readjusted at $118,000. Is it that I exaggerated it, or that there was just very poor handling on the front side of this? As you said, the carrier
Often,
would never pay more. Our personalities are not enough to move the needle. You know,
often.
cry, carry on, curse, bang our hands, and tear our clothing. No, that's not enough to move the needle. What moves the needle is proof. And the fact that we are consistently able to move that needle from 10, 20, 30,000 to what is it? 100, to I had one that I just successfully handled, and I'm not going to tell you the carrier, and I was able to meet with the person that came out, exceptionally talented person. The initial adjustment from the carrier's preferred vendor, a mitigator, was $30,000. What got paid out, what got paid out was an additional $195,000. Now, is it my personality did that, or that it was just such poor adjustment? Now, let's think about that. The initial adjustment that more than a year they just stuck at was $30,000. And then a professional comes in, looks at it, me, presents the evidence, takes a walk with another professional, has the large loss GA fly down from another state, look at it, and we all three as professionals look at it and we said, this is much, much more. And that the payment is now extraordinarily more, more than 5 times more. Is it are we doing this, or is it just such an asinine handling of the claim by people that are unqualified? And I
That's
would,
what it is. That's what it is. I mean, let's go back to the case that you and I worked on for one of our clients who the insurance company wanted to pay, $3,200 and said, "Hey, you got over a $20,000 deductible, so we owe you nothing." And the sad side about this is that after bringing us out, not to mention they had what, six adjusters on the claim, and the last one that we met out there was so arrogant he decided to tell us that whatever this adjuster say, it goes, and she has no boss, and the bosses call her, and nobody can tell her what she's gonna do and what she ain't gonna do, and she'll never pay what she's not gonna pay, and that's just the bottom line. And you remember that conversation him and I had, and I have to totally disagree with you. And he kind of threw a little tantrum, technically, that I had to tell him the conversation was over, but he
he
was
got a
still
little
really
butthurt.
pissed off. He was
He got
butthurt.
butthurt.
He was so butthurt he wanted to tell me, I know more than you. That was a comment he made. I'll never forget that. I know more than you, and I'm sure I know more than you. And I never forget that moment, to be honest with you, because after I spoke to the insured, that's when I actually told him I'd take this case on pro bono just for the purpose. I really did. He was like, "Oh my God," he said, I see what's going on," and to give our viewers an idea of how that turned out. I can't tell you who, what. We'll just say that the first check that got initiated out after us was over 300,000. And they're
Yeah.
still going back to the table now for an additional what, 700, 800,000,
Yeah.
and yet you were going to pay them $3,200 originally. We don't make it up. And again, they don't like me that much either. You know what I mean? I'm one again. I was definitely was not the most liked person out there at that meeting, but you pay way above what your professional said. We talking even from that original payment of 3,200 to 300,000 plus. Let's look at that. And then now you got to owe an additional 5 to 700,000 in the end. Is that's not crooked, what is? That's beyond saying we have inexperienced people. You and I never forget the case that you took on when we worked on the winery.
Yeah.
They paid them nothing. You got a settlement brought in for $2 million. Let's look at it. They paid them nothing. $2 million later. 70, 80,000 in San Francisco to the, homeowners association turned out to be 1.2 million,
Mm-hmm.
close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And how many meetings did it take to get there? How many, engineers or industrial hygienists and things we already said from day one was the problem. And they still try to refute that and come up with reasons not to pay it. And over $1 million. How is that possible? It's one thing to say it went from 5,000 to 10,000. You just went as far as to say 10,000 to 100,000. How do you get to $1 million in difference?
It is a mystery that is based upon the fact that our industry is based upon people sitting and wanting to keep their jobs, which I understand. I truly do. But we used to be an industry of professionals
Yeah.
that we were trained at a certain level, and we had further training every single year. When I was working for the carriers, there was additional training once or twice a year. There was additional training that you would go for 3 4 days, and you would travel for it, and it was something that they made sure that you did. In addition to the Fair Claims Act, you had to do these additional trainings. And so what we have now is that we have an entire industry full of people who don't know what they're talking about. That when
Yeah.
you say to them, this is the requirements of the mitigator, they say, well, I don't have to follow that. Well, what are you following? What are you following? You're making it up as you go. And
It,
that
it,
that that is on the level of being a circus carny.
well, it's even worse when you say that, when I have a claim like that, to say, well, they didn't follow industry standards. So let's go over that. What is industry standard? And
Right,
they've yet to been able to answer that question. They don't know because they
right.
had a third party adjust the estimate. Well, if you're going to stick by the position that it's not industry standards, don't you got to tell them what the industry standard is that you the reason you decline to do it, but they can't do it. And going back and forth with these adjusters that seem to stand fast on this, it leaves our people in a bad position many times as far as if it pushes it to litigation, or they find that they got to go to small claims, or they find they just go take the loss and have to choke it up. And that kind of goes back to our subject at hand. If more of these adjusters now have to list their license and be held more accountable, especially in this state where they can be sued, will they continue to do the same practices?
You have the ability to file a complaint against an adjuster's license. And the fact that you now are having an unmasking of licenses, you have the ability to file a complaint. You got to be correct in that filing a complaint, but you can't be emotional, but you have to be correct. And there is an ethics requirement that go with our licenses. It's
Yeah.
no different than an ethics requirement of an engineer. We have to hold our licenses that we do our practice without prejudice for the client or for the person, and even the engineering standards is that we do their work without prejudice or profit. I think that's the operative phrase: without prejudice or profit unnecessarily for themselves, and that's the standard that we've always lived by. That we have to do our jobs to the highest ethical requirement to restore them to a pre-loss condition, but now we have no basis of that understanding. It is just the Wild West show where everyone thrown in here is the Uber Eats driver that has no responsibility, and there's never any sort of consequences for them to do their actions. Never, never, never.
Ain't that crazy? But it is for us.
Oh yes. Well, that's
It's still
okay. Where do you think public adjusters come from, Troy? You and I both know the answer, but our listeners, where do the public adjusters come from? They come from the most trained, best qualified insurance adjusters who have lived by all the standards, who have been trained to the highest degree of understanding, and they become public adjusters because they can't stand working for the carriers any long. So we are the old school adjusters that have been around for now 35 years.
They still adjust. They really adjust. You know what I mean? That's the key. That really adjust. And you clear about that. That's we fight with facts, science, law, things of those natures. We don't make it up. Like you say, it's not overinflated. We write it according to what the policy allows and what the policy benefits are. That's why it's that misconception that is overinflated. The reason people think what should understand is that the contractor can't advocate for his cost. So his cost
Now,
is already reduced down. And the first thing they say is, we don't cover this. There's nothing in the policy that says something like, we don't cover carpet. We don't cover a kitchen cabinet. There's no such language. And yet a carrier would tell you, we don't cover that. And the difference between us and having an estimate that's higher is because we can't advocate for it. It is required, and we're forcing you to pay for it. And we're the only one that can force you to pay for it outside the attorney. That's the only difference. And the difference of it is, too, I would say, I won't say that's the only difference. You and I, when we sit down and we write and we prepare an estimate, we very fluent in preparing that estimate. We very detailed in preparing that estimate. Me being a previous contractor for over 2 decades gave me plenty of experience in understanding labor, material, how it's done, what's complexities, what's not, what's the process, what needs to be done and required to complete a job, and understanding the way it's built. And so many adjusters don't have an ideal. They've never swung a hammer, built a garage, built a doghouse, and they're out there telling people how to, set a foundation. But they ain't telling you. They're just saying the estimate says this. Well, it's pretty easy that if you draw a box in the estimate and you click the button that says foundation, and it asks you how many inches thick, and you put 4 or 6, and it gives you the measurements and it gives you the detail of the repair, and you think you know something. But a guy like me had to go out there and get in the rubber boots, had to go out there and screed it, build a form. I mean, all the thing it took to get
right.
out there, lay the wire mesh, the whole deal, contact the cement truck, calculate all that time and operators and get out here and do it. And I did it, man. I mean, there's nothing in construction that I've never actually physically done. My motto as a contractor, whenever I hired people that were subs, you had to teach me because I had to know what the heck I was doing and I was going after because this was what I did for a living. And so whenever I had my guys working, we physically had training days on the work site, pulled out the books, pulled out the easement board, everything. And customers would wonder, well, what are you doing? And I have to go, don't you train at work? And they go, well, yeah, well, we at work. Don't you want them to know this correctly, to not know it correctly because they're at work all day. And so all these things matter to hold people accountable and responsible. And going back to again, if it don't start somewhere, it has to start at some beginning. And that if that means you got to list a license number and be accountable for that much, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it can be helpful down the line. The question I get concerned most about is what's the penalty if you don't? Which will make people today, we see this all day. People commit crimes because the penalty is minor, it's minute. That's why retail fraud is up. Just walk
Right.
in and take what I want. You won't do anything to me.
Right. They won't even
I'm a
chase you out the
carrier.
door. Right.
What's the difference between an insurance adjuster? I can come out here and assault you, which we hear all the time. I can tell you, hey, I don't know you for nothing. You can live how you live, and I'm going home to a comfortable house, and you're really getting on my nerve calling me every day. And nothing will be done about that to him or her. But you make that complaint about a public adjuster to the state of California Department of Insurance, and boy, you got a compliance officer at your door. That's it ain't to be
And
played
you're
with.
on and you are on a time standard and you have to comply. And you're going to be calling and probably talking with counsel to get this unwound. And it's usually a misunderstanding.
And
And
that's
that
a great
misunderstanding is never about that we intentionally did something. It's always about a missed whatever, a missed stamp, a missed
absolutely.
payment for something. And the payment is just a fee to renew something. And it's not, I'm not talking about a license here. I'm talking about other things that are not, our license is very, very regimented. It starts at a certain date and it renews at a certain date every year for every
Absolutely.
license the same day. And everyone renews that way. And you have to have a certain number of CEs in for a certain date. Why are we so heavily regulated when in fact we're out here with the license doing this? Well, there are multiple reasons that is probably the way it is, and that we accept that we accept the license and we accept the work that it's under.
Absolutely.
Why can't the others be as professional as us?
We would all like that answer someday, Corey. And as long as we've been doing this industry, we still asking that. So I know a lot of our customers ask that same question, and people on this podcast that follow, like, why am I going through this, and why is this not being done better when I'm saying something about it. Um, we do the best that we can do, and we work under the system the best way we can. It's not the greatest system, but it is a good system. I mean, I got. There's a lot of good to the system that does
Right.
make a difference and help. So I'm not trashing the system. It just needs to be better. With all that we've given everyone tonight regarding these licenses and license numbers, and understanding why it's important for them to actually have these on their emails and why they communicate with these people so they can hold them accountable. What would you like to leave everyone with our nightly thought?
The nightly thought, I think, should be everyone is responsible to someone else. And so if you're getting an adjuster that is telling you things that make no sense, do not be bashful. Say, I'm not agreeing with you. I want to know who your supervisor is and their contact information. And I want to know that now. They have to give it to you. They can't front. They can't just tell you they're too busy. And the way around that is that's fine. I understand you don't want to give it to me. I'll just call back to customer service and then I'll get it from them. So you have to be assertive about this. You can't be bashful. So assert yourself, be your own best advocate, and don't accept no.
We appreciate that thought very much. I'd like to let all our viewers know that you can visit our store on Claims Underground. We have ebooks there that's available and e-workbooks. Our ebooks are books at a very reasonable price at $4.99 a book, no matter how thick or big this book is. It's very, very informative. It gives you information on DIY, doing yourself projects, and a lot of things that cover structure issues within the property, being like kitchens, baths, decks, painting, all kind of complete guides on how to do and understand what it is that's going on with your properties. And there's some other things in there that'll help, financials and little information on helping get businesses started that we just want to share with people to help out with those that just need an extra helping hand and getting started and doing the things that they want to do in their life and doing something that makes them happy and doing it as well. And just getting a better understanding on life. We'd like to really thank all of our subscribers that's been increasing our numbers on a daily basis. We see the numbers increasing daily. We really appreciate you guys very, very much. TikTok is now into the 7,000s, going into 8,000, and YouTube now is over 2,300 subscribers. So, we are growing, and we're growing in a way that people are listening. We appreciate as well all the people who's reached out to us because of our podcast, via Facebook, via, through the underground, when they've actually contacted us off of our email there, and just being able to call us. It's been remarkable just to hear from you guys. So we want to thank you very much for following us and subscribing. So until next time, my name is Troy Willis. I'm out.
Corey Locke. And thank you again. Make sure you hit up the SKU code, hit us up, and maybe if you hit us up, show us some love for a tip. We would appreciate it because we want to keep this rolling forward. And again, thank you for cluing in.
Absolutely. Have a great evening.
Thanks for listening to the Claims Underground podcast. We hope you enjoyed this segment. If you need more information on insurance policies, feel free to check out our website, www.claimsunderground.com. And remember, when the insurance companies won't pay, we're here to help. Until next time.